join us in welcoming our honored guest this afternoon, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon. This afternoon's convocation will be opened with the singing of the Star-Spangled Banner by Isaiah Lynn, a voice student in the School of Music. The audience will please rise.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please be seated. In this centennial year of the Department of Scandinavian Studies, and as a political scientist who studies European politics and culture, it's a particular honor for me to open this ceremony and to do so in the season of the awarding of the Nobel Prizes and on the eve of the Copenhagen Climate Summit. It is now my pleasure to present Dr. Mark A. Emmert, President of the University of Washington.
Thank you. Welcome to this special academic convocation of the University of Washington. We honor today the leader of an organization whose ideals are truly fundamental to the goals and purposes of this university and the broader field of higher education. The very right to an education, the right to participate in the arts, and the right to share in the scientific advancement of a culture, these are among the basic human rights proclaimed in the United Nations in 1948 in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. These rights and the other human rights affirmed by that declaration are vital to the research, scholarship, and teaching that takes place inside this university and universities and colleges around the world. So it is indeed a great privilege and honor for us to welcome to the university today the leader of that alliance of nations which serves to protect and advance these rights for all of humanity. Welcome to the University of Washington, Mr. Secretary General. The University of Washington is, in a very real sense, a global university, not only in its student body, but in the breadth of its activities from around the world. Over 3,200 international students will come here this year, and nearly a similar number of UW students will travel abroad to participate in programs located in more than 75 different nations. Our global engagement is reflected in the educational and research endeavors that we pursue worldwide. All of our schools and colleges of the university have important programs related to, for example, global health. And within our global health department, you'll find International Training and Education Center for HIV, a program with over 550 employees in 10 sites around the world that train healthcare workers in developing countries to treat HIV, AIDS, tuberculosis, and many other diseases. The International Clinical Research Center, as another example, conducts international research in the prevention of infectious diseases also around the globe. Our Department of Bioengineering has been developing diagnostic tools that will bring the sophistication of a modern medical laboratory to the remote regions of the earth and aid enormously in the battle against life-threatening diseases that kill millions and millions of people each year. This research and that of many others will do battle with diseases, make it possible, and is all made possible through the generosity of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and many others who support this work. We're also particularly delighted that the Secretary General's visit is being joined together as we celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Henry Jackson School of International Studies. Our university's roots in international studies date back to 1909 and the establishment of the Department of Oriental Studies, which offered courses in the history of Japan, the literature of Persia, Semitic literature, Sanskrit, and Hebrew. That department evolved over time into what is today the Jackson School, and it has become a hallmark of the university ever since. The University of Washington is tied with one other university for having the most federally funded area studies programs than any other university in the nation. Critical to this success are our language departments, through which we teach over 50 languages, those familiar and those not so familiar. By doing so, we not only strengthen our ties to those regions of the world where the languages are spoken, but we also help our students gain a better understanding of the cultures of the languages that they express. And this understanding has measurable outcomes. For the past 3 years running, the University of Washington has had more graduates volunteer to serve in the Peace Corps than any other university in the country. We are very proud of the role of the university in world affairs. We encourage our students to be compassionate citizens of the world and to take responsibility for its betterment. And we are very, very grateful to Secretary General Bond for sharing his time with our students, our faculty, and our university community. In many ways, the University of Washington reflects the state's broad engagements with the rest of the world. We are, as many of you know, the most trade-dependent state in the United States, and we're actively involved with our trading partners. No one has done more to promote our state and to set our sights on the rest of the globe than our governor. So please join me in welcoming Governor of the State of Washington, the Honorable Chris Gregoire. Governor.
Thank you, President Emmert, Board Chair Herb Simon, who couldn't join us, members of the Board of Regents, President Emeritus Lee Huntsman, Senator Paul Shin, faculty, and guests, good afternoon. I am honored to welcome the Secretary General to the great state of Washington. Sir, we are very pleased to have you here with us. As President Emmert has remarked, Washington State is internationally engaged. We are proud that people across the globe make their home here in our state. And we trade with the world, exporting goods from sophisticated software to Rainier cherries. Strong relationships with international partners are a part of Washington's prosperity. In fact, you may not recall, Secretary General, but we very nearly met in 2006 when you served as Korea Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade. I was on a Washington State trade mission to Seoul. We were scheduled to meet that very day, but just before our scheduled appointment, they announced that you would be the new Secretary General of the United Nations and whisked you away to New York. It was, you can tell, a disappointment to me, but a good day for the United Nations and for our world. Now, Secretary General, I have the honor to personally congratulate you and welcome you to our fine state. We in Washington share many of your goals: a peaceful world, a world where the rights of all people are honored. I would personally like to especially thank you for the work that you have done to rally nations around the world on our challenge in global climate. As you've said, the Earth is only a speck in space, but it is the only home we have. and sadly, our home is threatened. We believe, just as you believe, that although humans are a cause of climate change, they are also perfectly capable of addressing it. We wish you well as you travel to Copenhagen in December and seek a global agreement on climate change. I will be there myself to explain the efforts of state governors and mayors and provincial governors all across the globe to tackle this critical challenge. In short, Secretary General, we share a vision of a peaceful, just, and healthy world. Thank you for joining us, and again, welcome to our Evergreen State.
Thank you very much, Governor Christine Gregoire. The diverse and wonderful languages of the world sometimes make for interesting moments when people on our planet gather and seek ways to communicate with one another. But there's a language that transcends national and cultural differences and enables us to share a common experience regardless of our roots. That is the language of music. Today, to celebrate the Secretary General's presence, we have two musical performances from diverse parts of the community of nations intended to reflect our common humanity. The first group to perform is truly a Northwest treasure. Gamelan Pacifica is among the finest ensembles in the United States, devoted to the performance of the gamelan music of Java. Please welcome Gamelan Pacifica. Our student speaker today is a senior from Bellevue, Washington. She's in the Political Science Honors Program and is pursuing a double major in political science and law, societies, and justice with a minor in human rights. She has studied abroad in Italy and Thailand and is currently an intern with the World Affairs Council's International Visitor Program. She aspires to be a career Foreign Service officer. Please welcome Lydia Ansari.
Ladies and gentlemen, as our 8th Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon is dedicated to promoting a new era of advancement and cooperation among nations. He has pioneered solutions to high-priority global challenges, ranging from climate change to education, public health, extreme poverty, and women's rights. Tackling these difficult problems takes leadership, but it also takes grassroots action. Lasting solutions will require global citizens, like us, to recognize shared interests and shared responsibilities as members of an international community. This December, climate change will take center stage at the United Nations Conference in Copenhagen. It will be an opportune moment to show the world that we support clean energy and a green economy. It is time for Americans to lead by example in the urgent struggle to combat global warming. We must not turn a blind eye as victims of floods and droughts become more susceptible to poverty and food insecurity. Global governance is an essential tool in holding nation-states accountable for their responsibilities, but it will not be enough to ensure human rights for all people or to realize the Millennium Development Goals. It will take the collective will of concerned global citizens, you, UW students, faculty, and staff, who come together in solidarity to achieve universal standards for human dignity in our own local communities. Many women around the world are vulnerable to violence. They suffer from a lack of education, inadequate reproductive health care, and impunity for sexual crimes. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Secretary General Ban for his commitment to empowering women, for giving women a greater voice in the United Nations, and for promoting the Cairo Program of Action. But it's not just about securing rights, it's about claiming them. How can you, my fellow students, use the knowledge you gain here at UW to help improve the conditions of vulnerable people in our own country? And what responsibilities do we have to the human family? As a University of Washington undergraduate, I am grappling with these questions. My educational experiences have given me the opportunity to explore other countries, to celebrate intellectual diversity, and to foster global understanding through people-to-people exchanges. I strongly believe that higher education paves an avenue for global literacy. Students learn to think outside their immediate surroundings and can see firsthand how local processes often have worldwide consequences. For example, we have seen how an economic collapse in one nation will be felt in markets and cities throughout the world, and how environmental degradation in one community will spread to affect the resources in the global commons. As responsible citizens, we must continue to support strong international leadership while personally working to provide greater access to education, healthcare, and life-saving resources that will allow people to meet their basic needs with dignity. It is my hope that the United States and the United Nations can continue their historic partnership with renewed energy in the years to come. I have faith that unprecedented successes are possible with the support of global citizens like you and I, who recognize the importance of international cooperation in solving the challenges of tomorrow. Our common purpose is to persevere together with recognition that, and I quote our honorary guest, Secretary General Bond. We share one planet, one small blue speck in space. As people, as nations, as a species, we sink or swim together. Thanks.
Thank you, Lydia. The university confers honorary degrees upon individuals whose accomplishments reflect the fundamental values of the university and of our civilization. They are offered upon recommendation of the faculty of the university and are authorized and conferred by the Board of Regents. Those who receive them are exceptional individuals who have made profound and enduring contributions towards the betterment of our world, and whose vision and achievements represent the highest ideals to which humanity aspires. The honorary degree will now be presented to Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, following which he will deliver this year's Severyns-Ravenholt lecture, sponsored by the Department of Political Science and established by Albert Ravenholt and his late wife, Marjorie. The official citation will be read by Regent Bill Gates. Would Regent Gates please escort Secretary General Bond to the lectern? You're up, Bill. Okay. Can I get this out of your way?
If you don't mind. Ban Ki-moon, Secretary General of the United Nations. You've devoted your life to bringing peace and prosperity to the people of all nations. In a world inured to the casualties of war and conflict, you've given voice to the suffering of humanity. On a planet too often damaged by unbridled power and arrogance, you're a passionate advocate for the rights of the weak and the dignity of the downtrodden. In an age where there is no shortage of cause for cynicism, you carry the promise of a brighter tomorrow and offer proof that quiet, steadfast diplomacy can prevail over force. Your idealism has been hard-won. Born in a small village in the Republic of Korea, you experienced as a boy the devastation the war brought to the Korean people. But you also witnessed your country's remarkable rise to a leading role on the world stage, and you were determined to rise with it. You earned your bachelor's degree in international relations from Seoul National University, and then you came to America for a master's degree in public administration from Harvard University's prestigious John F. Kennedy School of Government. During a long and distinguished career in Korea's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, your diplomatic skill led to appointments as Director General for American Affairs, National Security Advisor to the President, Foreign Policy Advisor to the President, and ultimately as Korea's Foreign Minister. Your exemplary service to the United Nations began 3 decades ago when you became the Director of Korea's United Nations Division, and in 2006, the world's diplomats selected you to lead this gathering of nations by electing you to the UN's highest office, Secretary General. Under your exceptional leadership, the United Nations has strengthened its role as a peacekeeper, improved the economic condition of the world's poorest countries, removed landmines, built schools, battled epidemics, helped repatriate refugees, made progress toward nuclear disarmament, and focused the world's attention on the threat of climate change. Your unwavering commitment to the path of genuine and principled statesmanship has ever advanced the cause of a more just and equitable world. For your tireless efforts to bring all nations to the realization that their destinies are inextricably linked, for being a true friend to those who have lost all hope, and for continuing to believe in the power of honest engagement to resolve the fateful issues of our day, the University of Washington is proud to confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Laws honoris causes.
You have to have a diploma.
Dr. Mark Emmert, President of the University of Washington, Honorable Mr. Gates Sr., Honorable Governor of the State of Washington, Christine Gregoire, distinguished faculty members, staff, and dear students, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. A great Seattle philosopher once said, "Knowledge speaks, but wisdom listens." The philosopher was none other than Jimi Hendrix. I may be the first sitting UN Secretary General to give a public address in Seattle, but I'm certainly the first to quote Hendrix. You know, I just had a grilling session by the student board. 50 of your fellow students just quizzed me on the state of the world. I felt like a PhD student defending my thesis. You may call this an honorary doctorate degree, but I think I just earned it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not sure whether this is appropriate in this very solemn ceremony to say a few words of my personal reflection. People say that good things come to those who wait. And I know that is true. And I'll tell you why. Almost 40 years ago, when President Nixon of the United States had established a diplomatic relationship with the People's Republic of China, there was a high expectation in the United States about how to improve their relationship with People's Republic of China. And they might have wanted to have some perspectives of Asian person. I was a young, very junior young foreign ministry officials at that time, and I learned that one of the most prestigious universities in the United States was sponsoring a full-ride scholarship for a student from my part of the world for a China study. It was the University of Washington, and I leapt at the chance. So I studied and worked hard, and I took extra exams, and I put everything into it. And one day, a letter arrived. I was selected for an interview. I was so excited. And I was invited to come to a certain place called a Royal Hotel in Seoul. I was sure that I would get that. When I went to Royal's Hotel, I was surprised to find just a dozen of Korean citizens, professors, government officials, who were waiting for an interview by a professor who was dispatched from University of Washington. At that time, I realized that it was not only from Korea. They were selecting one person, one future scholar, in whole Asia, maybe in my part of the Asia. What could I do? I went through with the exam, with the interview, and fortunately I came outstanding. I was selected as the candidate from Korea. One day another letter came from the University of Washington. They told me that it was a good news, but I was only the first runner-up. They said that if the first choice of the university could not accept, then I would be selected. They told me to wait. And I waited and waited and waited. 40 years, 40 years. And here I am, and I thank you very much for this honor. I'm proud to call myself, I'm proud to call myself husky. In fact, my voice has become husky now. Thank you very much for welcoming me into your very distinguished, prestigious family. I accept this honorary doctorate not for myself, but for the organization I serve, the United Nations. By honoring me, you are recognizing the central role of the United Nations in shaping our world. As I look on this sea of faces, many young, some older, and more seasoned, I see the faces of the world, the United Nations of sorts. America's great strength is that its citizens trace their heritage to all corners of the world. Our stories are diverse, but we hold our dreams in common. The United Nations, too, is built on a common dream, a pledge to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, the reaffirmed faith in fundamental human rights, to promote social progress and better standards of life in larger freedom. This is the pledge of the United Nations Charter. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to talk today about what the United Nations does and how it is growing more relevant in our fast-changing world. Since the United Nations Charter was signed, the Cold War has come and gone. Development has lifted hundreds of millions of people from poverty. Technological advances have connected and empowered people the world over. Over the same period, global population has tripled. The number of hungry people now tops 1 billion. Environmental resources are under increasing pressure. Human activities are changing the global climate. Poverty and human rights abuses feed instability in too many countries. All are issues for the United Nations. That's what I'm dealing with. Since 1945, the United Nations has helped to negotiate more than 170 peace agreements. We have helped establish more than 500 multinational treaties on everything from the environment, trade, and international crime to the norms that governs our seas, skies, and outer space. With the UN help, more than 80 countries achieved their independence and sit now among the family of nations as sovereign states. Today, people look to the United Nations across a broad agenda of aspiration and need. They look to us to defeat poverty and hunger. They look to us to keep the peace, to expand education, and to stand up for human rights in every corner of the globe. They look to us to stop the spread of deadly weapons and disease, and to protect people and families hit by disasters. We deliver more humanitarian aid than anyone, any country, and to the toughest places. Every day, we feed 100 million people. Every day, we help more than 30 million refugees, most of them women and children, fleeing war and persecution. We are deploying more peacekeepers than ever, more than 115,000 to save lives and protect the vulnerable people. And in the last year alone, we provided electoral assistance to almost 50 countries. Countries such as Afghanistan, where we have helped to give a voice to a war-torn population, where we have helped Afghanistan's electoral institutions to expose and correct fraud where it has occurred, where we have moved swiftly to support a presidential runoff that can produce a legitimate and credible partner for the international community. Together, we are working to stabilize Afghanistan for the benefit of its people, the region, and the world. This is, ladies and gentlemen, your United Nations. In the past year, the entire United Nations has mobilized to face the global economic crisis. No one has been immune. Here in Seattle, foreclosures are still on the rise. Around the world, people face a precarious future. Many of the near people are becoming the due people, due poor. 100 million people, more people, could fall below the poverty line this year. Markets may be bouncing back, but incomes and jobs are not. I have repeatedly emphasized to world leaders that they must not leave the poor behind. The crisis is just one of many hitting us at one time. Volatility in prices for energy, food insecurity, the flu pandemic, the global recession, and climate change all demonstrate how closely our fates are interlinked. Such challenges demand full and better collaboration, all nations working together for common solutions. They demand a renewed multilateralism, rooted in rights and responsibilities and the principles of the United Nations Charter. They demand stronger global solidarity that delivers resources and political will. And they demand an effective United Nations. The United Nations is central to the renewed multilateralism. I welcome President Obama's vigorous engagement. In his address to the United Nations General Assembly last month, President Obama told his fellow leaders, and I quote, "The United States stands ready to begin a new chapter of international cooperation, one that recognizes the rights and responsibilities of all nations," end of quote. A major test of the new cooperation is just around the corner. In just 6 weeks, the national negotiators will meet at the Copenhagen Climate Change Conference. Rights and responsibilities are at the core of the negotiation. Solutions will not come easily. The issues are so complex. They affect national economies and individual lifestyles. They involve political trade-offs and the significant commitment of resources. Yet, all the ingredients for a successful deal are on the table. Copenhagen does not need to resolve all the details, but countries must agree to a deal that establishes an ambitious framework for progress of fundamental issues. It must involve all countries, consistent with their capabilities, working toward common and long-term goals. Those goals must include reducing greenhouse gas emissions and limiting global temperature rise to a scientifically safe level. They must include midterm targets for emissions reductions by developed countries and actions by developing countries to limit the growth of their emissions, as well as funding for these. These are their responsibilities. I would like to thank you here for how the University of Washington is living up to its responsibility by committing to work towards climate neutrality. I thank Honorable Governor Gregoire for her leadership and commitment to participate in Copenhagen Conference. I need such leadership. Every one of you can play a role. Each and every one has a role to play. It's not only government leadership. It's not only governors and mayors. The business community leaders and family members and students, professors, you have all role to play. Just by simply changing your lifestyle at your family, at your company, at your school, you can contribute in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. This is exactly why I'm standing here, thanking you for your commitment, but also encouraging you further to do more. Rights and responsibilities are central too, to ridding the world of nuclear weapons. In 1946, United Nations General Assembly adopted the first resolution, which set the goal of eliminating such weapons. After many years, the issue is back where it belongs, at the top of the global agenda. The President of the United States and Russian Federation have begun their negotiation to have a follow-on measure, follow-on agreement to START treaty. This is a golden opportunity. But let us also remember, ultimately, peace and security lies in the words I quoted from the United Nations Charter. Again, I quote, social progress and better standards of life in larger freedom. Hunger and poverty, inadequate shelter and sanitation, gross inequality and disrespect for human rights, they create political instability, civil unrest, and failed states. We have seen progress toward the Millennium Development Goals, but not enough, especially in Africa. Next September, world leaders will hold a special summit, a final push to reach the goals by the year 2015. The goal in which we lag farthest behind. And the slowest moving goal is maternal health. Every single minute, a woman dies of complications during pregnancy and childbirth. That is unacceptable. It is unacceptable that 200 million women lack access to safe and effective contraception, that women are routinely victims of sexual violence, that girls are married off as child brides, that women are murdered for so-called honor, that genital mutilation and other harmful traditions still exist in this part of the world. Whenever and wherever women and girls are denied the same rights and opportunities as men and boys, the United Nations must heed call to action. Ladies and gentlemen, these are issues that fill my days. These are the issues that I bring to the table with world leaders. They are my passion. When President Roosevelt helped found the United Nations, he envisioned the role of Secretary General as a world moderator. Each day, I seek to live up to this standard. I speak up for the principles of the United Nations Charter. I give voice to the voiceless. I defend the defenseless. Wherever I go in the world, wherever I speak to world leaders, I remind them of their solemn pledge under the United Nations Charter. I hold up the mirror of accountability, the banner of justice. I speak of rights and responsibilities. Distinguished faculty members, ladies and gentlemen, this morning I met with Bill and Melinda Gates. They understand rights and responsibilities. They are using their wealth to make the world a better place. They are working to roll back AIDS, TB, tuberculosis, and malaria, to improve food security, to empower women. They are working in the spirit of renewed multilateralism. Multilateralism is not just about governments. It is about all of you. You and me, business and civil society organizations all around the world. We all have a stake in our common future. I speak especially to the young people, the students in the room. I appeal to your energy, your optimism, your sense of justice, and innate hope. When I was a young man, growing up in post-war Korea, everything around me was in ruin, in poverty. We went hungry, our homes and cities were destroyed. We had lost so many of our friends and families. Then came the United Nations. The United Nations helped us rebuild. It was our beacon of hope. Still today, too many people in developing countries, United Nations is the beacon of their hope. That is why I stand with you today. I dreamed one day of working for the United Nations. I dreamed of making the world a better place, just as the United Nations did for me and for my country. Now it is your turn, and it is my turn too. Together we must unite and work for a better world. A world where human rights are cherished and protected. A world where children do not go hungry. A world where girls and boys go to school and live healthy and prosperous lives. These are the dreams of the United Nations. These are the rights of humankind. Let us all accept our responsibility to help every man, woman, and child on earth. Let us all help to make these dreams become reality. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary General Bond. Your words inspire all of us, and your vision of a more just, peaceful, and prosperous world is especially welcome at a university that spends so much of its energy preparing students for the future. We would now like to welcome to the stage Laura Chirodai and the Sukhothai Mabira Ensemble. Ms. Chirodai is a native of Zimbabwe who has performed and taught for many years in the United States and Europe. Her ensemble combines dance and storytelling with traditional and contemporary music from Africa. They will perform 2 traditional African songs. The first celebrates the strength of the African people and talks about the coming of the European settlers. The second is about the sweetness of pumpkins, a metaphor for the sweetness of life and of special occasions such as this one.
Jemte
We would like to thank Secretary General Bond, Governor Gregoire, and all of our special guests this afternoon for honoring us with their presence. As the Secretary General leaves the stage, let us once more thank him for visiting the University of Washington this afternoon. He's a new Husky.